Hello and welcome back to this channel. So in today's tutorial, we're going to learn how to create this super simple oil painting from a reference photo. So this is going to be a beginner friendly tutorial. That means that we're not going to concentrate too much on getting things perfect or trying to make it exactly like the photograph or working too much on the painting. But we'll learn all the basics and we will learn how to make this super simple. You can see the trees are super simple, by the way, to make it look like the original image. So let's just get started. I'm going to click on create new, and in here I will go into print and small postcard. By the way, I want the small postcard to be in this format. If it's not in the portrait format, you can click on this tiny arrow here and switch to portrait. Right now it's in portrait, so it says switch to landscape. If it's in landscape mode, it will say switch to portrait. So once you do that, you can just click on this to open up a new artboard. Okay, so let's go ahead and bring in our reference photo now. So if you want to download the reference photo and the color palette, go ahead and check out the link in the description box below. Once you've downloaded the color palette and the reference photo, it's time to bring them into Fresco. So you can do that by clicking on these images here and going into your photos. If you have saved it into files, click on files. If not, click on photos and bring them in. Okay, so I have my photograph here. Okay, so now if I try to move it, it disappears. So this might happen to some of you guys. That's because there is a little tiny adjustment you need to do to settings. So I'll just click on done now and click on your settings. And in here you see something called as Artboard preview. Make sure you turn that off. So when you turn that off, now you can click on your transform tool and you can move it right next to your artwork like this. And once you're done, click on done. By the way, never use these arrows to move your or resize your image because that distort it. Click on done. Okay, so now it's time for the color palette. Click on images again, go to photos and bring the color palette. Okay, I'm going to zoom in a little bit by using my two fingers to zoom, pinch and release. So once you're here, click on done. So now we need to add these colors to our palette, but in Fresco you cannot import a color palette yet. So the best way for me is to bring in the color palette like this and make sure they show up in the recents tab of your color palette. So how do you do that? Once you have this, you just click and hold with your finger till you see this icon and you can see that that color gets selected. And make sure you are in the brush setting for this, because if you're in fill or something, this doesn't work. And it does not matter which brush you're on. Just create a stroke on your artboard. When you create a stroke on your artboard, it creates a new layer, so don't worry about it. Let's go ahead and pick out all the colors like that. Okay, so once you've picked out all the colors like that, I'm going to click on this I button here to hide it. And I'll also hide the color palette because we don't need it anymore. Okay, so let's go ahead and check out the color palette now. You click on this color palette right here. For some people, it might show up here depending on if you're on a landscape mode or portrait mode of the iPad. So once you click on that, if you click on recent, so this is all where all your color palettes are. And if you click on recents, you'll see all these colors that we picked up. So by the way, this does not transfer to other artwork. That is, like if you close this, if you open and create a new one, you won't see this in your recents, okay? So this is for this artwork only. Okay, we have our colors and now it's time to start painting. So before that, let's just go ahead and quickly look at what we have here. So this looks really complicated, right? But we are not going to draw these complicated things. We're going to make it super simple. So I'm just going to go ahead and quickly sketch out things. You can do this yourself as well. Click on black and you can choose any brush. Actually, I'll just choose a vector brush because you're not going to use it for anything. So once you're here, it doesn't matter which layer you're on. Click on this plus to create a new blank empty layer or blank/empty layer. So you can see a line here. So we're going to go ahead and make one here like that. It's a very rough one, okay? And then you see all the trees. So your trees are going to be something like this, some high, some low. You get it. And then it stops right here, right? And then there's kind of a bush which comes all the way, so we're not going to look into it. And in here, you see that there's water everywhere except up to this level right here, and then obviously there's some green patches over here like that, right? And then obviously there's some bush right here. Okay, and then there are some clouds. That's okay, we'll do that later. And then there are some bigger leaves here, something like this and like this. This is not necessary, we can do it ourselves. So okay, so that's your sketch. I know it looks ridiculous, but This is all you need to create this artwork. Okay, this is just a guideline. You don't even need to draw this, but like I said, I want to make this a beginner friendly one, so we're just going to draw some sketches. Okay, so once you have this, I'm going to go into this layers here because I want to reduce the opacity. Click and reduce so that it's a little lighter, actually very light. Okay, and click back here so that that goes away. By the way, if you don't see this grid icon, that's because you haven't updated your Fresco yet. Go ahead and do that. All right, so let's start painting, shall we? Okay, so coming to oil paint brushes, you can click on this live brushes here, click on oils, and we're going to use something called as oil paint glaze. So click on that, and now we have to change some settings. So I'm just going to click on this outside here. Okay, I'm going to set my brush to about 512. That's the highest possible, and we're going to set flow to 100, and a paint mix is going to be about 55. This is really important because, you know, it gives you certain kind of mixes and all that. Okay, and I guess that's it. This is set to settings that comes with Fresco, but there's only one thing which you have to make sure that is turned on, that is reload color. This turned off, that doesn't work. Make sure you turn it on so that every time you lift your brush up and put it back in on the screen, it gives you that color which you have chosen. Okay, not the one which gets mixed up. All right, so let's start off with the sky because sky is like my favorite thing to draw always. So I'm going to go ahead and go back down all of these things and click on a new layer so that there's going to be a sky. Let's go ahead and choose the color. So I want this light blue. So you can see the settings here. If you click on this HSP slider, you can see the number, that's 198, 26 and 100. Because there are multiple blues here, I thought it would be easy for you if you could figure out which blue to use. Okay, and I'm going to pull that back. All right, so that, and now I'm going to go ahead and paint just above the trees here. Okay, you see I'm not going too high above, so I'm going to go ahead and paint a bit here. So you see when I don't add a lot of pressure, it creates this thing, but when I add pressure, there's this stroke which comes. Okay, that's something very important you need to know about oil paint brushes. So I'm going to go ahead and add a bit of color over here as well, because if you have a background, it's easier to do things. Okay, and next let's go ahead and take this darker blue. This is 206, 66 and 100, and I'm going to go ahead and add to the top of my artboard like this, and then I'm going to add it here and try to mix it so that, you know, there's a nice mixture happening. And I'm trying to bring more darker blue down here because I want this to be really dark up here because we're going to put some clouds and I want this to be darker. But here down, you can make it a bit lighter. Okay, see the texture, this is so awesome. Okay, and I think I want it to be a little light here as well, so I'm just going to go ahead and try to patch things up by giving it some lighter blue, you know, like that. Okay, so I think that mixed well. Not sure why there's a bit of purple in here, but yeah, whatever. Okay, all right, now it's time to add some clouds. So we're not going to add clouds in this layer because then it's going to mix with the blues, right? So click on a new layer and go and click on your white. Our clouds are going to be white, and you see there are some bits and blobs here. Okay, I think for clouds the 512 is really high, so I'm going to reduce it maybe around 200. So you can use this to increase and decrease the brush size also. You can click and hold and you'll get this, and then you can type in like this and click outside and you have the setting. Okay, so we're going to add some clouds here, like it doesn't, you know, because there's some blobs here and there. You can also turn the work and add a bit here. See, I'm using like very thick pressure, I mean a lot of pressure and a little bit of pressure to get that weird kind of a look. Okay, and obviously I'm going to add a bit here. Oops, let's make some here as well. I'm going to reduce the size, that maybe here. Then here. Some random strokes, by the way, you can see that, right? Maybe I'm going to delete this. Go to your eraser and you can just delete it off. I think that should be good, but let me just go ahead and make a bit more here. Okay, so your clouds are ready. I know it doesn't look like clouds, but trust me, once you're done with your painting, it'll look like clouds, okay? All right, so our sky is ready and that's awesome. Now it's time to make the trees. So we're gonna go ahead and go on top of these layers because we want the trees to be on top, right? So first of all, let me go ahead and bring in, let me reduce that. Okay, I have one of the dark greens here and we're going to use the darkest green you can find, okay? And then we're going to go ahead and this is set to 154, that's okay. And I'm going to go ahead and make sure that we are, you know, right below this area here. And I'm just going to add a bit of things like this. Wherever there's an, you know, up like that, go ahead and add some like this. Gonna make a base kind of a thing here, okay? All right. Next, let's go into a darkest green that we have. I'm going to go ahead and try to mix it in like this. You can put it on that. There you go. So lift your pencil and then bring it back in to get that color. Otherwise, you know, it becomes dark after a while. I'm going to go ahead and color this as well. Alright, so now it's time for lighter green. I think I'll take this, that is 93, 85 and 60. It doesn't matter, choose any green that you want, it really doesn't matter. And we're gonna go ahead and add trees properly here. And if you think the sketch is distracting you, just go ahead and uncheck it. No, that's not the one. That's not the one, this one. Yeah, and then you can go ahead and draw. Okay, and now let's go ahead and choose some lighter green, but this we're not going to add a lot, just a little here and there. Like that. Okay, that looks good. And now in the end, I want to go back to that dark color that I had, and I'm going to reduce the size to maybe about 80s, I guess. I'm going to go ahead and fill it a little bit like that, you know, so that it looks like there's a tree here, see? I'm putting a lot of pressure as well so that the black comes through. Okay, let's look at it. Okay, and I think I'm kind of happy with it. Not exactly happy, but it's okay. It's not bad, okay? All right. So once this is done, it's time to add some finer details. So click on a new layer now, and this color is fine. And I'm going to go ahead and decrease this to about 40s maybe. Let me just try. Yeah, a little bit more, maybe 30s. Yes, that looks good. And I'm going to add some twigs kind of a thing. Okay, so you see this here, all these twigs, or you know, the branches and things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and add, but I'm not using a lot of pressure, by the way, and I'm going to go ahead and make some lines like this. Don't add too many because it might not look good. So add a little bit here and there so that, you know, it just looks like, oh, okay, there's something things over there. Okay, I guess we are ready. Now it's time to actually group these things. You have to group the layer which has the sky, that's the background layer. Click on that. Now click on these three dots here and click on select multiple, and we're going to choose the clouds. We're going to choose the green background that we did and the twigs that we put in, or the branches that we put in, and click on this folder icon here. So everything is a group. So if you click like this, it goes away and now it comes back in. Okay, click and now duplicate layer group, and we're going to go ahead and let me just uncheck this. When did this even turn up? I don't know. You can just click on this to, shoo it away, and then click on this transform tool here, and we're going to go ahead and transform this. But before you begin this, I'm going to undo that. You can undo using 2 finger taps, by the way, and redo with 3 finger taps, or you can use these buttons right here. Okay, let me click on that. So go to this panel here, which is grid, and click on rotation snapping and make sure it's set to 90 degrees. Okay, click back to remove that. And now let's go ahead and click on transform tool and hold this handle here and rotate it till it snaps at 180. And we're going to go ahead and bring it down a little notch, just so that it is right below this layer. Okay, and by the way, we should have turned on the alignment thingy. So I'm going to undo that as well. Click on done, go here and make sure you click on alignment guides, because when you do that, it's easier to figure out the center of the artboard. That is, I'll do that again. Turn around, scroll down, and you see the center. Make sure you put it something like this and click on done. Okay, so one thing is we need to remove these excess parts here. So I'm going to click on the eraser tool. Make sure it's at 46. We should go in here, double click to go inside. Let's go to the layer with the sky. So I'm going to go ahead and erase this extra bits off. You see, only till the treetop. Okay. Now let's go to the tree layer, and this is a little tricky because you have to erase it so that there's no gap here. If there is gap, we'll have to come back and fix it, which we can do, by the way, later. That looks good. Now it's time to make this into a reflection, and that's pretty easy actually. You can go back here and you can do that by using the smudge tool. Click on the smudge tool. Let's go into dry media and let's click on graphite. Okay, and this is set to about, I want to set it to 177, somewhat that range, 170s, and the flow is set to 23. That's okay, and smoothing is set to 1. Doesn't matter. So for this, we have to flatten this layer. That is, click and click on merge layers in group. So now you can't edit it, like all elements are stuck together now. So there you go. So now we're going to go ahead and blur this thing out. That is, you're going to go ahead to your smudge tool. So instead of using my brush, because it makes it weird like that, I'm going to use my fingers. So you can actually increase the size here, maybe 340. Let's check it out. Yeah, this looks good. So I'm going to go ahead and smudge this like this so that everything looks smudged. Okay, so smudging is ready now, and it looks like it's a reflection, right? But we're going to add some things now. So click on a new layer and let's go back to our light blue here. And let's go back to our brush. I'm going to increase this to about 90s. And we're going to add a bit of thing here. Using some light strokes. Like that. Reduce the size. And add some strokes. Just like that. Okay, all right, so that's done, and now it's time to add all these things. So we have to do that above all these layers. So click on a new layer and let's go ahead and put some greens first. But before that, we have to choose the dark green or whatever we have, and let's increase the size to about 512 because that's what we wanted, right? And now I'm going to go ahead and add some blocking the area where I want. So I'm going to turn on the sketch again. No, that's not the sketch. This is the sketch. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and block the areas, not completely like that, but you know, something like this. Okay, and now click on new layer, and now it's time to add some greens and things like that. So for this, I'm going to add a bit of green here, maybe a bit here, maybe here a bit like that. Okay, this was 93, 85, 60. It doesn't matter actually, you can use any green that you want. Okay, and now I'll use the lightest green that I have, and I'm going to reduce the size to about 200 or 300. And then let me just click on a new layer. Everything has to be on a new layer, by the way, otherwise it won't come up nice. And then let me just add some bits like this. Okay, and obviously I'm going to add a bit here. Maybe choose a different green, and this light green, that is 96, 82 and 85. I'm going to add a bit here like that. Oops, new layer, by the way. And maybe a little like this. Yep. You know, just add some blobs here and there. It doesn't really matter. We're going to add more things later on top of this. Okay, now click on a new layer, and we're going to go ahead and add some yellow flowers. We do this first because then we'll know where to put in the rest of the leaves so that the area looks covered. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and uncheck my sketch because it's bothering me. I'll go here, click on the yellow that you have, this bright yellow that you have, and then let's reduce the size of the brush to very low. Let's check in the, yeah, this looks fine. About 45 or 50-ish should be okay. Now we're going to go ahead and add some blobs to it. So I'm just going to add like blobs like randomly. If you feel this is too tiny, maybe increase this a little bit. And you know, like add some blobs. Okay, so now click on a new layer, and we want this layer below this layer. That's because we're going to go ahead and choose the darker yellow. There's 56, 93 and 89. We're going to go ahead and add some more blobs, but these are going to be behind the existing blobs, you know. So it looks like the flowers are behind the layers like that. Make it darker as well by going a bit below like that. Once you have that, let's click on a new layer, and this should be below this layer as well. Click and hold, it gets highlighted, and bring it down. And now we're going to go ahead and select the dark green that we have, or black is okay as well. So I've chosen black here now. We're going to go ahead and add some twigs to this. So you see the twigs here, so we're going to do that. So maybe, you know, straight, we need to change the size to about 50s, I guess. This should be okay. If you feel this is too thick, go ahead and change it right now. Actually decrease it to 40. Below this layer, I'm going to go ahead and choose a dark green. That's 110, 62 and 30. I'm going to go ahead and add a bit of color here like that. You see, like that. Add some twigs like that, like this as well here, here. And then we'll go on top of this black layer and then add some as well. adding some blobs of it. And now let's go ahead and choose some bright green, 93, 85 and 60. Click on a new layer, and we're going to go ahead and add some round bits like this here, and obviously here as well. And I'll go on top of the flowers layer and try to add some of these like that as well. So maybe here as well, a bit of them, not a lot, just a few, and in different directions. Okay, and on top of that, I'm going to go ahead and select black, and I'm going to reduce this to about 20s. I'm going to add some lines like this as well. I want this to be very, very few of them, like that. Now if you feel like you need more flowers or something, you can always go back and go to a new layer in case you want to test it out, and you can add some flowers, smaller ones, you know, just so that they give a little bit of character like this. Okay, I think your artwork is ready. You can go ahead and edit it a little bit more. Maybe go into the layer which has the trees now. So I'm going to go here into the group, double click, and go into this one where it's the, you know, all these things, and we are at 21. Click on black, and I'm going to add some more, I guess, but a little darker. You don't need to do it, it's just an optional. Okay, go back now, and then your artwork is ready. You see how it looks almost like your actual, you know, artwork. By the way, you can actually use a little less blur on this so that it looks much nicer. Okay, I didn't do a really great job when it came to blur. Maybe use a smaller brush and then it will look better. I know it was a very simple tutorial where we created a very, very simple artwork. By the way, to export it, all you have to do is click on this export button here, share, and click on publish and export. Don't do a quick export because it's going to just take a snapshot. So click on publish and export, and we're going to export it as a PNG. You can also export it as a JPEG or anything that you want here. And it's going to export only the artwork which is there on the artboard, you know, and not the image. But you have this, click on done, you know, export or whatever. Click on done, and then your artwork is ready. And if you want, you can turn this off, and you know, you can just see your artwork and nothing else to disturb your view, by the way. Anyway, so that brings us to the end of this tutorial, and I hope you liked it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. You can support this channel or support me by buying me a coffee at coffee.com. You can find the link to do that in the description box below. Or you can also share this with your friends and family or anybody who's interested in Fresco, or on your social media handles, by the way. It'll really help me out. If you do create something with one of my tutorials, make sure to tag me on Instagram at printmesomecolor or thinkbeyondcolor, because I really like looking at you guys creating things off these tutorials, you know. Makes me feel happy that at least someone is finding it useful. Okay, I guess I'll see you in the next video then. Bye-bye.